But, Mark, let's move on into the AFC. And I'm going to be completely honest. We are going to have the exact conversation that we just had about the Bears, except, well, pretty much, here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to play the last segment we did, but every time we say Bears, I'm going to dub over Texans.
Yeah.
Every time we say Rams, I'm going to dub over Patriots. And then every time we say Saints, I'm going to dub over the
Chiefs.
Every time we say Vikings, I'm just going to exclude it because really there's no one in this division that's going to catch the Texans in my mind.
All right, we'll see you guys later.
But we're talking about the Texans. They're a team 8-3. They started out 0-3. Now they're on an 8-game win streak. They win last night, Monday Night Football. On YouTube, you're like, Ricky, it wasn't last night. We're recording this on Tuesday. When it comes to the Texans, can they win in the AFC? Can they compete with the Patriots and Chiefs? Or is this just kind of like a mirage because they kind of, I don't want to say have had an easy schedule, but they haven't had the hardest schedule.
It's interesting to me, and I look at it, and when you first ask, can the Houston Texans win the AFC, my immediate thought is no. I mean, you got the Chiefs and you got the Patriots. It's not even close, which is interesting because the Patriots and the Texans are tied. But that's the thing.
And they only lost to the Patriots by a touchdown.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing with this is you've got this team where if you're not paying attention, they're a better team than you think. In the offseason, there was all this hype, and they lost 3 games in a row. The next 2 games, they were only able to win in overtime. And in all, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, the first 6 weeks of the season, Deshaun Watson threw at least 1 touchdown. I'm sorry. He did, but at least 1 interception is what I meant. He threw at least 1 interception. So things were not looking that great for the hotshot quarterback for the first, 6, 7 games of last season. And now things have kind of turned around a little bit. But you look at him, and he's looking like an average quarterback all of a sudden. 1 touchdown a game, 2, maybe some interceptions. He's only got that 1 against Miami where he threw for 5 touchdowns. He's not looking like who he looked like last year. Is that we have tape to watch now? Is it just that he came back down to earth? Is it the injury? Is it still bugging him a little bit? There's question marks there, but there's also injuries to other players on this team too.
And that's the thing the funny thing I heard today was I was watching Highly Questionable, and Amin Elhassan, who's an NBA front office insider.
Okay, I was gonna say I have no idea. I've never heard that name before.
Yeah, Amin Elhassan, who's an NBA guy, he kind of made a comparison back to the NBA where he's like, the Houston Texans are kind of like the Memphis Grizzlies. They're usually loaded with injuries, but when they're healthy, they're pretty good. Like, they're a pretty good team.
Yeah.
Like, the Grizzlies right now, I believe, are like, 3rd in the West right now?
I mean,
after not being a playoff team last year?
Well, on Monday, just to make it easier for everybody else, on Monday, J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney were out there. And I was like, whoa, these guys are both healthy. I didn't realize that they were both healthy right now.
Well, and that's the thing. I think this team, like I said, exact same conversation we just had in the NFC, it's going to be the defense that is the key to this team because I look at it and I look at their past games this season. Only 3 of them have been blowouts. The 27 win at Jacksonville, 42-23 against Miami, 34-17 against the Titans. Everything else, 7-point game against the Patriots, 3-point game at Tennessee. You have a, if my math is correct, 5-point game against the Giants, 27-22. Then you have 3 points against the Colts, 3 points against the Cowboys, 7 points against the Bills, only 2 points against Denver, and then 2 points against Washington. This team is, I mean, not to play the devil's advocate thing, but it's like a lot of teams look at it where it's like, oh, man, we are a bounce away from winning those games. They're a bounce away from losing most of their games. Yeah, winning 3, but losing like most of the other half of their games.
Well, the other thing too, I mean, you look at the schedule and like you start to list the teams that they played, and you say, how did the Houston Texans get this schedule? And can my team have it next year?
Well, because they weren't good last year. They had a top 5 pick last year.
They did.
Well, the Browns had that pick.
They've even gotten a little bit of an extra bounce to that, I would say. Not only are they playing bad teams, but Jacksonville is bad this year.
We expected Jacksonville to be better, though.
Well, that's my point.
Better, yeah.
Jacksonville is bad this year. Dallas, when they beat Dallas, it's a completely different Dallas team. Same thing with the Colts. The Colts are now bouncing back, but they've had good fortune so far. And we're not going to take anything away from the Houston Texans. You only play the teams you play.
Yeah.
You know,
and their defense has been great.
Exactly. I mean,
especially of late.
You know, you play the teams you play. You got to win those games. But it's interesting to me when I look at this team, and it's like, you know, if they can have Lamar Miller as successful as he was against the Titans,
he's the key.
Nothing.
He offensively, to me, he's the key because you look at all 3 blowouts, he's got 100 or more yards.
Yeah. And I mean, it should be a John Madden type of moment of like, well, yeah, if your run game is good, your passing game will be good too. And if your run game is good, your defense is going to be off the field more often, resting. They're ready to play when they get back. I mean, it all makes sense, but you're completely right. I mean, it's something that a lot of these teams kind of ignore, that if you have a good running game, you're going to help out your passing game.
But like, you look at it and it's like Lamar Miller has been so inconsistent this year. Started out like 98 yards, then 68 yards, then only 10 yards. He averaged a yard a carry against the Giants. Then 49, 46. I know, because he was on my fantasy team, and I was like, I can't do this. I need to get rid of him. Then he had 2 good weeks, 100, 113, had scores in those games, but then went right back to 21. And I mean, I'm not saying that Lamar Miller is never going to have a 100-yard game again. Like, the rest of Houston's schedule is not the hardest schedule in the world. It's a very winnable schedule down the stretch. My only concern is his inconsistency, and when are we going to see those 100-yard games? Because we've only seen 4 this year. 3 this year. I'm sorry, 3. Almost 4, because week 1 he was at 98.
Honestly, though, it is interesting because you got these 2 conferences and the 2 teams, and you got 2 teams above the Bears and the Texans who both look fairly unreachable.
I would say the Patriots look more beatable than the Chiefs, Saints, and Rams.
Well, I mean, they're the same record as the Texans, too, so that certainly helps. But you've got teams where they got good defenses. They've got, you know, hot young quarterbacks. They've got inconsistent run games, good wide receivers, quarterbacks that scare you a little bit because of how many hits they take in awkward ways. It hurt Deshaun Watson last year. Just look at Thanksgiving Day. It hurt Mitch Trubisky for the Bears. These teams are very eerily similar to each other, and both of them sit there in this spot where I'm like, they can maybe upset one of these teams, but probably not. Fortunately for either one, there's not really that much behind them that's going to mess with them. The Houston Texans should be in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I doubt they're going to lose the next 5 games because if you pay attention, it's the Browns, the Colts, the Jets, the Eagles, and the Jaguars.
That Colt game is, to me, the most interesting one. Because,
Colts and the Eagles.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about conference-wise because if
I still think that... well, okay, I get what you're saying.
If you look at it, 2 fronts why.
Yeah.
One, the Texans are 2 games ahead of the Colts. So it's 1 loss that the Colts could have to gain a game on you. Number 2, the Colts are in the heat of it, currently tied with the Ravens for the 6th spot. And what's funny is if the Texans have the 3rd spot and the Colts get the 6th spot, you get a 3rd meeting between those teams. So it's like the Colts could basically win their way into a 3rd meeting with the Texans.
Which would be very interesting because the Colts are starting to get a little hot. They're starting to have things go well for them.
I mean, good thing, too. 3 of the last 5 are in Houston.
Yeah. Yeah. That certainly can help. You know, but it's going to be interesting for sure with the Texans. I for sure expect them to be in the playoffs. But you look at some of these other teams. I mean, Chargers are a good team. The Steelers are right there. Baltimore Ravens are currently in the playoffs, but they got a new quarterback in there, and who knows what's going to happen with Joe Flacco. But the Colts are fighting their way to get back in. You know, you definitely have some competition on the lower end here. The Texans, all they really got to do is win like 2 games. and it's easy. I mean, obviously they're a 10-win team at that point, but this isn't like the NFC where you can win 10 games, and especially in years past, you can win 10 games and still miss the playoffs.
And the thing that I think helps them is, like, for example, the Steelers losing this past week. I think if the Texans are going to make some noise in the AFC, they need to be the 3rd seed for 2 reasons. Number one, you avoid a team like the Chargers. We're going to see what the Chargers are without Melvin Gordon. The knee injury, I think it's pretty serious. He's not going to be in this week. But anything with the
potentially
MCL
should be back for
playoffs. For the playoffs. But I mean, even when he comes back, what is he going to be like when he's back? So that Charger team, will see what they look like this week against the Steelers on Sunday Night Football. But I mean, if I'm the Texans, I want to do everything, and of course you're going to go and try to win every game.
You should, but it's a good idea.
You want to be that 3rd seed, because I'd rather play a team like Baltimore, play a team like Indy in the first round of the playoffs, and if I'm taking my pick of who I want to play in that second round, call me crazy, but I want the Patriots. I don't want the Chiefs.
Well,
especially if I'm the Texans, because I already know I can play the Patriots tough, and the Patriots have already shown this season that there are some kinks in that armor. There are some weak spots that if you hit that weak spot, this team can go down. They are not invincible like they have seemed in years past.
The only advantage I'll say to this, or only, I guess, thing to disagree is Bill Belichick and Tom Brady, they know how to get it done and get to the Super Bowl. Andy Reid's shown more than not he knows how to lose in the playoffs. It's only made it to the Super Bowl once.
I mean, lost to the Titans last year at home.
So he's shown that he can have things go wrong.
But he didn't have Patrick Mahomes last year. He had game manager Alex Smith last year.
He did. He also had Donovan McNabb for a long time, and that wasn't always the best thing.
Who do you think's better, Donovan McNabb or Patrick Mahomes?
Different eras.
But who do you think's better? Who do you think's more dynamic?
I don't know, because we just talked about Deshaun Watson right now and his very pedestrian season so far. So maybe we got to wait before we crown their asses.
True. I mean, I just look at it and I mean...
With that being said, Mitchell Trubisky's the GOAT.
The thing that's going to be the true test for the Texans is, and this is going to sound really stupid saying this, is the playoffs. Because then...
it shows us if they're a real team or not.
Exactly. We're going to see if last night, and I know divisional games I kind of put in a different side, but it's like, I didn't expect that game to be 34-17 walking into it when that game started. And I look at the rest, Baker Mayfield can throw for a couple touchdowns, but I think the Texans win. The Colts could win, but I would probably favor the Texans. I would favor the Texans in every one of their final games, with maybe the Colts and Eagles being the games where it's like I could see them losing those.
Yeah, I can see those both being losses for sure. The Houston Texans, though, they've got a shot to make some noise, to make some impact here. But yeah, like you're saying, that's the chance where we get to see if this is a real team or not. It's one thing to win an easy schedule. The Chiefs did it. What was that? Was that like 2013 or something, that they were like a 13-3 team because they had a really easy schedule? First year of Alex Smith there. I think it might have been 2014. Really easy schedule when they just cakewalked through everybody. Very next year, all of a sudden they hit some roadblocks and they weren't the Super Bowl team that people were expecting them to be the following year. So sometimes those schedules that are a little easier makes you obviously play better, but makes you into a better team than you should be. They've got a very kind of easy strength of schedule to them. But like I said, you only control the games you play. You're given a schedule. You got to win the games that you're supposed to win.
So, Alex Smith in 2013 came to that team. They were 11-5. They were number 2 in the
playoffs.
In the division. They were a wild card team. They lost to the Colts in the wild card at the Colts, 44-45. Then went 9-7. Didn't make the playoffs. then went 11-5, beat the Texans 30-0, lost to the Patriots 27-20, then 12-4, lost to the Steelers. That was the field goal game. And then last year, 10-6, lost to the Titans in the wild card game.
Yeah. So that first year, they came on really, really hot, and they had that great, easier schedule. I kind of feel like that's the Houston Texans a little bit right now. And like I said, they can't do anything about it, but we need to see them play some tough teams because, you know, you look at it and it's like, all right, the tough teams that they played lost to the Patriots. I'd call that one a tough one. That's about it. I mean, they beat Denver. That's a tough game. And that's about it.
You're talking about that season or
I'm saying this
season?
year.
Okay.
They played like 1.5 tough games.
Because looking at it, and I'm going to retrospective, of course, hindsight's always 2020. But just to go through that schedule, they beat the Jaguars. This is the Chiefs, by the way, 2013. They beat the Jaguars. The Jaguars ended up being 4-12. The Cowboys ended up being a 8-8 team that year. The Eagles, they were 10-6. They won that one. Giants were 7-9, another win. The Titans and Raiders were 4-12. Titans were 7-9. The Texans and Browns were 2-14, 4-12. Browns again. Then the Bills, you've got 6-10. Then they lost to Broncos, and Chargers. Chargers were a playoff team at 9-7, and the Broncos were only 13-3. Then the Raiders, they beat the Raiders again, lost to the Chargers again, beat the Colts, who were a playoff team, or lost to the Colts, who were a playoff team, and beat the Redskins, who were 3-13.
Yeah.
So they won a lot of games against some really big cupcakes that year.
Yeah.
So you were right. Like, it wasn't 13-3, but that schedule was loaded with cupcakes.
Yeah.
And why they were 11-5 that first year.
Exactly. And to me, that kind of feels a little bit of what we're looking at this year for the Houston Texans.
So they're saying they'll probably, hey, third seed, and then, hey, Baltimore gets in and maybe knocks them out in the first round.
If Baltimore, if they're playing Baltimore,
exit?
I don't. They could, yeah, for sure. I wouldn't expect Baltimore.
What about Andrew Luck though?
Andrew Luck definitely could do it. Andrew Luck's got plenty of experience winning playoff games.
I'm telling you, the one team I don't want to play if I'm the Texans in the first round. I want the Steelers to keep losing because I don't want to see the Chargers. If the Texans see the Chargers in the first round, they will not get to the divisional round. They will lose in the wild card round, and I believe that.
I don't know. I think that the Steelers or Chargers will both be tough matchups. They would do much better against the Ravens if Miami can squeeze their way in there.
And I just say that because I don't think the Steelers are going to lose the division. So there's no way that the Texans would then play the Steelers.
Yeah.
I don't see Baltimore or Cincinnati catching the Steelers for that division. But, like, the Chargers, they should technically be the 4 seed, but they're the 5th seed because they've got a 9-2 team ahead of them. And, I mean, hey, the Chargers, let's see, have they played the Chiefs twice this year? I think they got one more game against the Chiefs coming up. Let's see. They do. So, I mean, that Thursday night game on December 13th.
Maybe they can steal it.
If the Chargers win that, they could be the number 1, number 2 overall seed in the AFC, maybe even the 3rd seed. Any final thoughts before we go on into some draft talk, though?
No, not necessarily. Watching Lamar Miller play yesterday, though, man, that was fun.
Man, he was on Lions Guy's bench.
Yep, loved
in our
it.
personal league. And what's funny is in the What's Your Fantasy League, we traded him away because Andrew gave us Saquon Barkley.
Interesting.
I think I would take Saquon Barkley over
I would
Lamar
too.
Miller,
I mean,
though.
last week Lamar Miller was really nice. But.
Yeah, he was really nice. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think about the Texans down below in that comment section. Are they for real? Are they not for real? Is this kind of the, I'm going to say, wolf in sheep's clothing? Did I say that right? Or is it sheep in wolf's clothing? It's wolf in sheep's clothing is what I think. No, it's a sheep in wolf's clothing because they look like a wolf, but they're really a sheep. That's what I'm thinking of. It's a sheep in wolf's clothing.
No. It's a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
Because it's something that you think is good, but it actually is going to eat you alive.
Okay. I was thinking more on the other end of like they're a wolf. I think they're going to win, but no, they're really a sheep. They're going to lose. Whatever. You guys get the reference.
I'm just gonna
Are they
stare
for
at you
real?
while you do
Are they
it.
not
I
for
love
real?
it.
Let us know down below in the comment section.